we're back. Let's see. Well, at least the thing is good about like that's also why I'm gonna probably go back to like some SD stuff, but the live stuff's fine. But also on that note, we went to.
Coming up.
I mean, it's gonna pop off,
Okay.
but it's a trial and error, man. Like I was with Streamyard, and I really enjoyed Streamyard. You know, didn't have that lot of issues, but Restream just you go to 5 channels, and it's the quality is just better. But
Better
also
software, yeah.
just but also I am having issues with my comments sometimes.
With your what?
Comments.
Oh, like not working?
Yeah.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
So does Restream just show all the comment? There it goes.
Did it work?
Yeah, I'll pop it off now. The YouTube one.
No, I mean like the so I changed streaming platforms, but it's not the same as like how I might go back to StreamYard.
Back to StreamYard.
Yeah, well, I've always had it for like 5 years. I never, besides the quality of it, I never had problems with it.
Okay, we are good as far as I can tell. Yeah, we're good. You're up on YouTube.
Okay.
Well, that was fun.
Well, I mean, I changed the software. We're probably gonna go back to StreamYard. Quality might not be as good, but I had more control of it.
More reliability.
Yeah. So also, guys, as we're speaking on is I have been lacking on putting out 4K SD. Just I think it's a lot to do with work, insurance, family life. When I'm getting lazy with this because this software will take me to after the show. I just can put out the podcast, and that's probably why people are like, "What the hell?" But I need to just go back to the basics and start editing again. It's the bigger shows it'll take me. It takes me about 3 hours, 4 hours to put out an actual decent 4K show, which I'm going to do that. Okay. I'm being lazy. This is nice.
Well, I wouldn't say you've been lazy. It sounds like you've been busy. A lot of people don't know that a lot of people don't even know I have 4 kids. And they're young. So I got an 11-year-old, I got a 5-year-old, I got a 3-year-old, and I got one that's turning 1 here this month. And so a lot of people don't, they see me out in the public, but because I'm so busy, a lot of times don't realize that I do actually have a family. So I can relate on being busy.
Well, I think, yeah, you're right. I think for me, but once you get in this ability with the microphone and stuff, it's kind of like you should definitely go for me, or like, I mean, you look at like you're affiliated with, and let's go into your name because this is your second time on the show. You did it with Ivan Spinner.
Yep.
And it was over the shipping containers, right?
Shipping container houses.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I crush his dreams with the downtown project. That's a different mess.
So let's go into, I had a lot of people have respect for you. One of my buddies, Ray, you worked on a development in Will Market. That's something, guys, we're going to be talking about because I had a few people reach out to me going, I mean, you did a great job. Me and you and I haven't talked about it at some time about you getting involved with local politics, which for you, it's Biloxi has been a big part of it. Let's go back to a little bit, for you and where you're from, who you are, and what got you into, getting over here and then really diving into local politics.
Yeah. So I'll go to the first question you asked. So I was born and raised near Youngstown, Ohio, out actually in the countryside. So, my parents' first house was kind of downtown type area, kind of like East Biloxi type area, but obviously up in Ohio. And then they kind of moved out into a suburb of the city in Austintown. And then they moved out in the country when I was about 10 years old. And I spent the rest of my childhood up in Ohio. I then, and I'll say it in this is something I don't usually broadcast in a political environment, but I'll say it here is I'm military. So I've been in 18 years. And, but and obviously nothing I'm saying here has anything to do with the military at all. No association or affiliation on that one. But I joined the military and I spent 6 years in Germany. Then I spent 8 years in Las Vegas, and then I happened to have Keesler on my dream sheet. So Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi on my dream sheet as a place that I'd be willing to go. It was one of those places where I said, hey, it was kind of a why not type of thing. I didn't know the area very well. I just knew that it was a place that people didn't say bad things about. It's not Hawaii. It's not Alaska. It's not something like that. But I thought, hey, that'd be kind of an interesting place to live. So I had it on my dream sheet, and then I ended up getting moved here. And that's really how everything started. Because I got moved here, though, I bought a house, and that led into me learning a little bit about development and things that are happening in the area. And one thing led to another, and I got to where I am today. But I'll hand it off from there. I'm sure you have more questions from that.
Well, I'm just trying to watch this show right now because it's checking on the default of this development it don't look that bad. I mean, so I'm not seeing a lot of heavy movement on here. It's just hard. So I apologize about this, guys. It's just we're gonna have a good show. The show's run a while. It's flickering like I've never seen before. But yeah, it's not that bad, but
yeah, it seems fine.
But
I think people will forgive us. At least we're on.
I will have this out. I promise you on 4K. I'm sorry, Chase. This thing is jumping all over and it's driving me crazy, and I can't see comments. I'm getting out of this shit, man. I'm getting rid of this. I'm going back to the old school setup. It's going to drive me crazy. All right. Well, I was fascinated with like your involvement when you started doing the town hall meetings or the council meetings and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I felt like that was something that we talked about on the show, and that's something that people are starting to know you by. You go in, you do your research, you get involved with the community, whether it's your project or not your project. Most of it is not your project. It's just you want to go involve yourself into the community, and the way you do it is by research. You like diving into legal reasons too.
Yeah.
I look at how far you've come with it, whether good or bad. It's just the fact that you're going out there and doing it. You're not getting paid to do this.
Yeah, no. All the big stuff I've been involved in. In fact, you mentioned as if some of the things have been in my area. In fact, everything, and I know it's kind of a dirty term sometimes, is being called an advocate. Or there's tons of different terms out there that have different connotations. But for me, none of the projects that I've gotten involved in have been actually anywhere near me. The closest was the Ivan Spinner container project, which, just as a reminder for the audience, that project was, if I recall correctly, it was 7 shipping container houses in a small little community with a pickleball court in the center. And that was over a year ago. And that was the closest one. But that project was, I want to say it was about a mile from my house. It was not directly in my neighborhood. I knew people that were in Edgewater Estates that were near it, that it was a concern for them. But even that project wasn't. And then you got Big John that you're talking about with Ray. That one is across the bay, nowhere near me. And then there was a Hawk Creek Phase 2 one that came up recently that I spoke at. That's the most recent one. And that one again is across the bay in Wool Market, nowhere near me. I'm in Ward 5. So I'm not near any of these projects. It's just people reach out to me, they ask for help. And I do my research. And as long as it's something that, if they have a good legal argument or an ethical argument, or usually it's a procedural issue, I'll help fight for them based on those problems.
When you do these projects and people reach out to you, how long does it take you to really dive into like a certain project? This is kind of like, this is a passion of yours.
Yeah.
So let's say a person's reaching out about Big John, and how long did that take you to start researching that project?
Yeah. So that one took me a week to prepare for. And that is probably my fastest that I've had for a complete project from I go from zero to hero, and I'm not trying to call myself a hero, but that's the best euphemism to use for that is 0 to hero. It took a week, and the reason why that one, because I watched development throughout Biloxi. Keep an eye on the development review committee meetings, the planning commission meetings, the architectural and historic review committee meetings. But depending on what I see, if it looks like something that the neighborhood already has a good handle on, or that the that the planning commission and the city council is already going a certain way that I would say is within the law, I generally just move on and spend my time on other things. And with Big John, that looked like the case. So Big John, the planning commission voted to deny it. Well, actually, I believe that one might have lost on majority. They just didn't get majority. I think it was like 6-6-0-2 or something. But anyway, they didn't have the votes to approve it. And on top of that, Big John Road came out as a major force against that. I don't think I've seen that many letters sent to the Planning Commission, besides the recent Hawk Creek Phase 2 project, ever on any project I've been in. There was dozens and dozens of emails sent saying, do not approve this, do not do that. They came out, they spoke at the Planning Commission voted it down, but then when it hit the city council, Councilman Glavin moved it from a denial resolution to being a first read for an approval of the ordinance, which gave him, that's where the week comes in, which gave the community a week to prepare for actually fighting against what looked like the potential of an approval. And at that point, when I saw this occur, I reached out. I made a Facebook post. Excuse me. And I said, hey, if you haven't already filed a protest petition, you should do that immediately, because that would force a 5-7 vote at city council instead of a 4-3 in order to approve it. And some people don't know this. A protest petition, it goes back to Mississippi law. A protest petition is like 20% of adjacent properties. And I'm being very verbose in that because there's 3 different criteria. You just have to meet one of them, and it's like adjacent versus rear. But the point is that it doesn't take very many people in close range of a rezoning, which is what Big John was, a rezoning, to affect a supermajority requirement at city council. And at that point, the residents then had reached out to me for more information. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of research and learn everything I can about this. And it went from there.
You didn't know these people. And I think for me, speaking on it, like I kind of grew up there with Ray and his family. And I remember him reaching out before, this is, I said, dude, I just reach out to your local government, like your politics. And he really did speak on that. He met with you the way you did. And this is me, just what he's saying, like how you met with them when they reached out to you. And, you were a big part of their little community, and they learned a lot and you gave insight. So I'm going to give you that. That's just from him calling me. And this is just, we've been friends since we were 4. 5. I mean, that was a move that I had, was like, either way, like Glavin did give a week for y'all to get everything together. Right. So that's pretty huge too. Like, but you look at like how is social media, and when you go, you're not from here, but you're looking at this way, but now you got people reaching out to you like, hey, I need help on this. And, most people go bowling. Okay. Like most people go fishing down here. We go to bars, but you're gathering information for people that, here, everybody's an uncle. You meet a friend, they become an uncle to your kid. Yeah. There's this hospitality. Was that one of your biggest victories?
I think it was the biggest because that project had the most. If it would have been approved, it probably would have been the most damaging to the character of that area over any of the other projects. even over, and I know there's a bunch of people from Hawk Creek that are Eagle Point, but the Hawk Creek people who fought off Hawk Creek subdivision at Eagle Point and Woolmarket. But that one in particular, phase 1 had already been approved. It's kind of changed the character already. It wasn't a rezoning. It's a subdivision. It's a little bit different. It has an impact, no doubt. But this one would have absolutely changed the character of the area with Big John. And just from talking to the residents, I got to go full circle, right? So what started it all, and I said this before when I was on this podcast, was I was going to some town, the Paul Tisdale, Ward 5 councilman, hosts, I believe it's twice a year, if I recall correctly, a town hall for the ward. And I saw, and I'm just going to call it out directly because it's the truth, and people who know me know how I feel about this, and it's not even really hidden anymore, is that I watched Mr. Jerry Creel, the community development director, speak about certain zones and certain rules and other things in the area near my house. And there were things he said that I knew were patently just, they were not true. And I've kind of grown to a point of understanding in my life where if somebody is not telling the full truth, not just once, because that could just be a mistake, but not telling the truth more than once, even if it's something small, I start to question whether or not they're just a dishonest person in general. And when it came to stuff to deal with zoning and ordinance rules and the way that we develop in Biloxi, if we can't be honest with the residents of Biloxi on the small things, how can we expect them to be honest on the big things? And so that really pulled me into this to begin with, where I started looking into stuff. I started reading ordinances. I started reading law. I started reading case law. I started looking into everything I could find and consume on everything I could look at, even old city council meetings, because you could look up meeting minutes going way back, actually hundreds of years. They actually have on the city website, you could look at city council meeting minutes going back to, I want to say, the late 1700s, if I recall correctly. So if you're really interested in that stuff, you can learn a thing or two. And so for me, that caught my attention. But what really sparked my, hey, look, I need to start getting involved is because I started learning things that were not happening. And then I started having residents tell me, you can't beat City Hall, and I wish I would have known. If I had only known about this, I would have done this. And I got tired of hearing it. I really did. And so when Big John reached out to me, I got to a point where I don't have a better way to say this. I felt like they were being bullied. I felt like their neighborhood was being bullied to become something that it wasn't. That this neighborhood reminded me of my hometown, where I grew up. My parents built their house on a wooded lot. They bought 5.5 acres. It was their dream. They had saved up for decades to get us a house and build a house in the country on 5.5 acres. And I see these folks in Big John that are fighting for that character that for some of them has been, from what I heard, was it 200 years going back, where I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is the most Southern Mississippi person I probably could ever meet. If I were to write a book, it would be this person here that's saying, I grew up here. My dad lived here. My grandfather lived here. My great-grandfather lived here. What are we doing to those folks those are the people who built Biloxi, who built the area? And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but to me, I took that very to heart. And those are good people out there. And they deserve to be treated like we all want to be treated.
Well, I mean, that's not rambling on. It's just speaking from your heart. Like, you're being passionate about, because you see your family, building with, their piece of land. So you see this small community, which Big John is, I mean, from the keg parties to the growing up to the, just spending time there. I mean, I think that was why they reached out to you, because to them, it's what they have. It's, and honestly, the infrastructure of just them roads. I mean, you've been out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's home. I think that's just. I think you're speaking because that makes sense why you had to put in the word because I mean that it is similar to. It's definitely that's how there was. Most of the people there didn't come from money. They've worked Ingalls. They worked all kinds of jobs to have that land. Most of that land's been passed down to their family. Growing up there wasn't a lot of new development, and if there was development, whether the parents sold their kids a couple acres, and they're building on that. But it's the parents. It's like you look at that property. So. Can we go into what that Big John development was going to look like? Can we talk about the square footage of the lots?
Yeah. I was just going to say that because some of the audience won't know this. So it was a rezoning case from agricultural zoning to the original request was medium density single family zoning. Now, what that means for the most part, and there's a lot of attributes that come with zoning, but the important part is this. Is that the minimum lot size for agricultural zone subdivisions is each lot must be a minimum of 1 acre. And all the lots around there to the north are more than 1 acre, generally more than 1 acre or close to 1 acre. Some of them are 3 or 4 acres. And to the south, there is some are a little over an acre. There are some that are a little shy of an acre, but basically the directly adjacent lands, there was nothing smaller than 0.66 acres, if I recall correctly. And the rezoning request at medium density zoning, the best way to put it is in the percentage of an acre, or decimal point anyway, is that it would bring it from 1 acre to 0.17 acre lots. And that is a dramatic change. It's actually a change so significant that there's 2 other zones that could have been done between agricultural and medium density single family. Residential estate, which would have been half acre lots, low density single family, which would be quarter acre lots, and then you've got now the 0.17 acres. And I know that there was an idea of, air quotes here, a compromise to make it a quarter acre lots, but that is still a far cry from the 1 acre lots of that area and would be a dramatic change for them. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that when you change the zoning in one area, if you don't appeal it within 10 days in the courts and it sticks, that's pretty much it at that point. And now the other adjacent lands around it can use that to justify their rezonings too. And so you get what I call a trickle effect of rezonings, which we've seen over here in on the peninsula in Biloxi, is we've seen cases where rezonings have trickled down entire subdivisions. I can't remember the name of the subdivision right now, but there's one just east of the Edgewater Mall. There's a road, and somebody's going to know it, I'm sure, in the chat, that is turned into almost exclusively short-term rentals, an older neighborhood. And that was all done. Most of it was done through rezonings over time. So if you don't take a stand somewhere, that's going to happen to your neighborhood. And this was a strong stand for Big John Road. It was a good move. They got together, and I would tell you, I understand. I don't have a better way to say this. I've had a lot of thanks from the Big John Road community, but to be honest with you, none of that. My help is no good without a group of people like them that were very organized. They wanted to know the law. They wanted to know how to fight. They wanted to know who to call. They had everything, and they were willing to take it to court. And it wasn't just, I'm going to sue you. People say that. You do this, I'm going to sue you. No, they were ready. In fact, at one of the meetings I went to, the question was asked directly from one of the leads of it, which he said, "Hey, I just want to see, raise your hands if we have to sue. How many of you are, raise your hand if you're interested. Would you put money toward it?" And anybody who's ever done like any sort of event before where you ask for money, usually you'll get some of this. Sure. That is not what happened with Big John. Big John was instant the entire room. There was no second thought. It was instant, unanimous. We're going to back it. All of us are going to throw money to it. We got a lawyer already that we've already talked to. We're going to take it to court if we have to, and we're not going to stop until our appeals processes are done, because this is wrong, and it was wrong. It was just wrong. It violated many, many things. But yeah.
That's interesting with the money part. I've been involved in some groups like that before, and having a casino come in our neighborhood, and we had a group put together. And when it came down to the money, $25, maybe $50. And then there were a couple of us that wrote the bigger checks to pay for what we had to pay for to make it happen. But you just didn't get the money. But they were very interested.
Very interested until somebody asked for the money.
That's right.
But that definitely wasn't the case with them. And, I was going to say this a little bit earlier. I mentioned four children. Now that's going to get quoted. 4 children.
Cut this, guys.
That's funny. That's getting clipped. 4 children, a wife, 2 dogs, and a house that I'm constantly renovating. And that's generally my day-to-day, right? Where my priorities really are, with God being first. But some people kind of ask it. They ask it in different ways. Why are you doing this, right? And you've caught a bit of that on why I do it, right? I feel it's the right thing to do. But there are also, and believe me, I've asked myself this quite a few times, is, well, why me? And I'll tell you why, because frankly, God has blessed me. The way I look at it is if I'm able to learn this and absorb all this stuff about the ordinances and the law and working with people. And I was not a public speaker at all, actually, until I arrived here. Because of my current work's position, I had to learn to talk in front of people. And then now I've had practice talking in front of city council so much that, seriously, at this point, it's become, I'm not shy of talking in front of people anymore. And so the way I look at it is if I'm blessed with that ability, because I remember when I didn't have that ability, I should use it to help people. So that's why me. Well, why me? Because I've been blessed. So what do you do with a blessing? Well, you share your blessings. That's what you're supposed to do. So that's why I'm here.
And it was on your list for a reason.
Yeah, and it was on my, and I didn't expect to get it either.
Yeah.
It was just why not? And now it's become a complete life changer for me.
But the thing is, you're reading the laws, you're in it, so you're not just making things up, correct?
I'm not making things up. I'm not saying I've always gotten
4 wives.
4 wives. That's funny. Yeah, I'm not.
And you're not getting paid.
No.
What's your thoughts?
I'm not saying. No, I want to be fair. I'm not saying that I've never had somebody throw money after me afterward and with a thank you, of course, but I never asked for money ever. Never asked for money. And any money I get, I put right back into the efforts. I put right back into, whether it be any sort of advertisements on Facebook to get messages out for the next people. But I always leave with the thing is I tell people, pay it forward. I'm not asking for money, help the next people. I told Big John Road people about, hey, Eagle Point's coming up. They're in Wool Market. Go help the Eagle Point people. And, so no, I never ask for money from people.
What's your thought on satire?
I think okay. So freedom of speech is number 1 on that, but that's a bit cliche saying that. What I'll tell you is our country was founded on satire. Benjamin Franklin, he wrote satirical pieces, or satirical, and he sent some over, and I don't have it in front of me right now. I don't have this stuff kind of memorized, but he sent some over to back to England, and they ended up getting, some of them got published in I don't know if it was a newspaper at the time, journals, whatever it might be, but some of them got published over there because they thought they were real. So playing pranks on people with fake news, which is really satire is a form of that, but it's designed not to be taken seriously. Of course, there's an "I got you" factor because there's always going to be people who inevitably think it's true. But satire has an effect of, especially satire that touches on real things or gets real close to something that's true. If it's real close to something that's true, but clearly exaggerated and having details in there that are obviously not real, and any, as the Supreme Court would put, any reasonable person, that's the requirement for satire to stick as not becoming libel or slander. It has to be that a reasonable person, which I know can be subjective, but that's the court standing, a reasonable person would know that it's clearly not true. Unfortunately, sometimes what I think we're seeing lately is that the truth has become just about as funny as the fiction. And so it looks pretty real.
We'll call it nonfiction.
Or yeah. It's become that. It's become that way.
You look, so, from certain posts, which, like, you're probably right. You're definitely right on that, because you look at media now, all social media, whether it's, you can post anything in a 15 seconds, our attention span's probably 6 seconds now. I mean, it's just when you see something, boom, boom, boom. And you probably don't even fact check it, but that's a big part of it. But playing into satire on which is kind of crossing the line, but it kind of uncovers people to do their research, is how I take it.
Yeah. So the way that I personally write satire is that
anonymous.
Yeah.
Style,
I mean, I don't know. I'm just writing things in places, but the way that I always do it is, and some people will notice this and they'll figure it out, is that I try to keep things down to one screen, like one standard screen, meaning that if you scroll, it will be exactly one cell phone screen, because that's about the attention span of an average person right now. The other thing that's interesting is that if you're going to write anything that you want to, and this is for people who want to get out there and write satire or just do advocacy work at all, is that your first sentence is your most important sentence. So can the first sentence stick on its own? Can somebody read the first sentence and immediately either derive a fact or a joke immediately on the first sentence? If they can do that on the first sentence, you've now caught their attention. The rest of it is a build-up from there.
Or called clickbait.
Well, yeah, and people will call it that, but the reality is that,
well, this understanding of when you say that, though, is what people, if you look, it's always been called clickbait through social media. Yeah. Satire is a word, like, a lot of people don't know, satire, but like clickbait is more common term. You got to add that in there. I know it's hard, but it's in there.
I'll never forget the person. I saw a comment once where somebody said, "What is satire?" And the person responded something like, "It's a valuable stone." Apparently, he thought the person meant sapphire instead of satire. And so, yes, there are quite a few people that, unfortunately, but I'm cool with that. To me, look, I spend all my time learning laws and ordinances, probably more than I want to. And that allows time for people to learn humor and learn what the word satire means in the process, which I'm okay with.
So I have to say this. We have one. Why has no one posted on Biloxi politics uncensored in the last little bit? You go into, like the satire of the toll bridge.
Toll booth?
Toll booth. Yeah, toll booth. I always mistake words on the show, but you know what I meant. Like, they, but like ultimately that could take both ways. I mean, we've seen this several times with projects, and I mean, it's just not in the, the way of like a cartoon. And then it kind of brings back to the old school style of, comics back in the day, right? You got in the newspaper and there was just little clippets of a segment, a flow segment, and boom, how you take it. Now you just move it to social media, and this has been around for a long time.
Sure.
I mean, it's just it's been satire, and
I mean, most political cartoons are satire. It's as a form. Most of them are.
It's just, I think social media is like an old school cartoon. A lot of it, when you look at some of the stuff, expression. Definitely with the whole, freedom of speech is a big one. What was your thoughts on the toll booth?
Uh, it was amazing to me. The funny thing is, it's not that the majority of people who read that thought it was real. It was that there were so many people who saw it. That one, about 60% of the people responded to that. So they obviously knew it was a joke. And then there was, I want to say about 30% that angried it, probably didn't know it was a joke. And then there was 10% that were just, who knows, like crying and likes. But the majority knew immediately what it was a joke. The problem is, well, not really a problem. The problem for the city of Biloxi, clearly on that one, because they released a whole response to it, was that, and I don't even know if a lot of the city knows this, but that one got seen, what was it, in about 10 days of being online by 260,000 people. People, not views. It was about 500, over 500,000 views, but it was seen by 250,000 people. And to be honest with you, I didn't even think it was that funny. Compared to some other satirical pieces, I thought the mayor mobile crashing into a pothole was funnier. But of course he doesn't think that's funny. I think he preferred the toll booth one. But I think it was the sheer number. The sheer number was what the problem became, because if that got solved by 1,000 people and City Hall got 2 phone calls, I don't think there would have been much of a problem with it. The issue became is that when you have 250,000 people see a post and you have potentially 30% that thought it was real, well, 30% of 250,000 is a lot of people. So that one spread like wildfire. And to be honest, I think part of it was people were playing jokes on each other. Like they were sharing it like, ha, got you, is what I think that kind of became. A bit of it anyway.
If you're looking at the situation, sorry, I'm just, guys, we're having issues on the live, but I will promise. That's why I'm looking over here. ADHD is kicking in on me. My eyes going like, because we have a small flicker, which is going to be resolved. We're going to work really hard to get the live going where we used to always be. But the thing is, like let's go back to the satire. It was, for me is, it's an expression. But you look at both ways. Some people want to like say on, is it cancel culture or on certain heavy political stuff. But that stuff falls real deep. But the satire is, it seems in a form, especially with Biloxi politics uncensored, right? It seems to me that it's always more into a cartoon form. Take it how it is. This is just an expression. There's just you always have to have a little tough skin on any of this stuff. Like when it comes to expression, because you're moving into social media, and I've been at social media for years. It to me, in that situation, you see so much. It's always like, so much this. It's like, but then it's okay sometimes to see a little funny post, or we call it meme too. We call it a meme.
Yeah, but the thing is for those that take it seriously, it can be a powerful tool. You mentioned the numbers of 30, the 60 and the 30. 30% is about what we usually get max to elect our elected officials.
Yeah. So Biloxi, maybe it was the last election. I'm trying to remember, but I'm going to go with on average, and somebody's going to correct me. I'm sure I got to look at the numbers again, but on average, it's 5% of the total population, not registered voters, but the total population of Biloxi votes, 5%. And I want to point out something. I was thinking about this when I drove over too, is I wanted to look back historically. That's another thing I like. I love newspapers.com because it allows me to learn about a history that's not my own. And what I mean by that is, and I highly encourage viewers to do this.
What's it again called?
Newspapers.com. Pay the subscription. Like seriously. If you really want to learn how, and it ties in so much with things that are happening today. If you want to learn about history, you got to read old newspaper articles. And unfortunately, we just don't do it the way we used to with news and media. But when when you read old articles, like for example, the last time I was on the show, I brought up the Bay Village project. That was the mixed use Bay Village project that now Keesler Federal. This is for the viewers to understand. This is that vacant property that was owned by Cotton 4. That's a name people will remember. Between the current Keesler Federal Union building and Edgewater Estates. That property there got rezoned to limited business recently. Excuse me. But in 2008, there was a mixed use project called the Bay Village project that was supposed to get built there. It was going to look like, and people are going to have to Google this, the frontage of it would have looked similar to, if anybody's been to Keg and Barrel in Ocean Springs, it would look similar to that at the front, which was businesses on the first floor and apartments, condos on the second and third floor of this building. Well, it ended up being a whole mess. Planning Commission didn't want it. Protest petition got filed. City Council didn't follow the protest petition. Lawsuits flew, and a bunch of stuff went a bunch of different ways, and it didn't happen, right? But the only reason I know about that is not because I lived here in Biloxi during that time. And I say this because this is, look, you know, I'm not too proud to think I know everything. I did not grow up here. I've only been here 4 years, and I have no problem admitting that I don't know everything. I love the people here. Love the fortitude and everything and resilience of the coast. I think you guys are, anybody who's still here today and they're older has obviously seen some stuff. But we do have a tendency to not remember our history, and this is true of anywhere. In Ohio, anywhere. It doesn't matter where you're from. And if you get a newspaper.com account and you really want to learn and go, hey, you know, back then there was this, you could really learn some things, and that can really play into the way things are today. So that's, at least anyway, that's one of the things I recommend that people do is newspaper.com, looking at city council meeting minutes, which are free. You can get a link on the city website. And the other one is going to the Munici Code website for Biloxi, where you can read all the ordinances. And those three tools are what allow me to do what I do. Those three tools. I look at history, I look at law, and I look at the historical political actions of our elected officials in Biloxi. And that's how I do what I do.
Damn. That's good tips, though, if you do want to dive in.
Like,
I mean, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Do you watch television shows?
If I had time. I mean, right now I'm watching The Chosen, but that has nothing to do with this.
I would say, I mean, you look at how you said 4 years in here.
Yeah.
And you're giving out sites, which you're going to throw sites in here so people can, know the sites. We'll add them in.
Yep.
But you're not doing it. Like I said, you're not look at me. You're curious. Seems very curious about where you living, because you do have a home here.
Yeah, I bought a house. I bought a house. This is the first time I ever owned a house. And it came with a lot of problems, but I dreamed of owning a home. And I say this, be careful what you ask God for. He might answer, because I prayed hard for a home, and he gave me a home. I mean, he gave me a home. I've spent the last 4 years working on that home.
Money pit.
Yeah. And and it's not a money pit because I do all the work myself. Again, I'm a research guy. So, replacing moldings, refinishing floors, painting walls, sanding them, whatever it might be, even building vanities. I'll do it. Because I think it's in my blood. Maybe it's the Italian part. I don't know. But my grandfather on my mother's side, not the Italian side, ironically, he grew up in the Great Depression. And I, unfortunately, he died when I was 10, but he left a mark on me even at that young age. And he was a fixer because he had to be a fixer, because you grew up in the Great Depression and you had money. So if you wanted to be functional, you better figure it out. You better figure out how to do it yourself, because you don't have money, but you do have sweat, and sweat equity is something you can put into it. I encourage people to do that. I encourage people to be lifelong learners, to say, hey, look, why am I paying somebody to do something? And I'm not saying, contribute to the local economy by all means, but I would rather you contribute to it by buying what you need to do the sweat equity part. And that's where you're really going to make up for it. But he left a mark on me, and I just strongly believe that, God gave me an able body. And he gave me a brain, and he taught me how to learn. And so I'm going to learn, and I'm going to put sweat equity into it. And that's what I've done with the last 4 years of being in Biloxi, whether it be politics or my house or whatever it might be.
What's your kickback? What's your thoughts right now on this?
He was actually talking about his grandfather. I'm a little bit older, so my equivalent of the grandfather was my father. And he was always fixing and doing something. And I was remembering that we took a 2-car garage and converted it into a family room. A lot of people have done that, made those rooms. But it was a pretty extensive project, and 90 pine walls, and we laid brick on the floor and put in a fireplace and all that. It's where I learned to curse. You know, how many times can your father hit his thumb and not? So it was, but yeah, I'm a kind of a hobbyist too. I do a lot of woodworking and that kind of stuff, and I enjoy that. So it's
Do you feel like going forward as you watch the Anonymous Person, or you look at Biloxi politics uncensored, and you're starting to see growth with it? There's clearly a lot of growth. Is it? And you say, I mean, there's people that it's an angry page, but then there's people reaching out that are, hey, I'm over here. I mean, is it moving to like cities and cities? Is it getting out of counties?
Well, the 250,000 on that satirical piece with toll booths definitely made it all the way to Florida. So that one, that type of stuff went everywhere. But I do hear that a lot. I've heard people say, "Well, you're so negative." Well, let me put it this way, right? And I'll give it to them. Noah Nobles recently, WOX, has covered some really tough stories. They covered Big John. They've covered recent stuff with Hawk Creek and other things, and they covered Glavin and the conflict of interest case that's going on right now, a lawsuit against the city. But there's plenty of people to tell a good news story here. And I'm not saying I don't like good news stories. Actually, I think this is a good news story. I think Big John, for example, is a good news story. In the past, a neighborhood like that would have probably been crushed. I think it's a good news story that they won, but what did it require? Well, it required some people to think, I'm a negative person. For what? For exposing the truth? I mean, if exposing the truth makes me a negative person, fine. Call me negative. I don't really care. I'm hoping there's a day where there's much more good news to say than not. But if you want good news, there's plenty of people to give it. The city of Biloxi has their own website, their own Facebook, their own website. They have the B News. They put out good news stories all the time. And I'm not saying that there's any lies in any of that. That's not the point. The point is there's not a need there. But what there is a need for is people to know the truth and know how to fight for the community. And I would say when we talk about growth, I would say the biggest growth that I'm seeing is people are hungry for knowledge right now. And maybe it's another enlightenment period down here. I don't know another way to put it. But people want to just know the truth, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I have, with that said, I've had people approach me with things that I said, that's not going to work. That's not a good argument. It has no legal basis. I can't really help you. Like, I understand your concerns. You're right. This is a problem. It's going to be an issue, but I can't help you because I don't have anything to help you with. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and I've done that before. And that's truth in a way that, is not typically the area I want to go to, because I do want to help people. And I have been accused of before recently, that like I'm looking for trouble or I'm going around or whatever. Well, if I call it how I see it. I don't have another way to say it. If it's brought to my attention, I'll get involved. Like I said with Big John, I didn't get involved in Big John until it was clear there was a problem. I was like, well, they don't need me. Those Big John folks are tough. They, I wouldn't have want to been on the other end of that. But that was them reaching out. And I said, if you ask, look, what, and I'm going to have a pastor smack me in the face, but, I'm going to do my best here biblically is ask and you shall receive. And my stance, not saying I have any God complex or anything, because I don't. But if somebody asks for help and I'm able to help, I've never, I'm thinking hard. I don't think I've ever said no. I've said maybe later, maybe I'm busy right now and need some time. And I can't right now. I need a little bit. I have something else going on. Give me some time. But I generally don't say no. Not if somebody's really in need. If they took the time to ask for help, which, by the way, within a society right now where people are generally very prideful, we have a very prideful society. If somebody's asking for help, that's the opposite of pride. If they're asking for help, that's the people who need help. They asked, so I'm there. And I hope others do too. I hope people take the advice and get on newspapers.com, Unissi codes, and learn these things and learn where to look. Because we mentioned this before, I'm not so prideful to believe that I'm never wrong. I have had cases where I misunderstood something and got it wrong, but I've never intentionally.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
How many things have you got wrong?
I can think of, I know there's two, but I can only think of one right now. And one of them is related to Coral Breeze. And I know somebody watching is going, aha. But one was related to Coral Breeze, which I call them cigarette box houses. They're across from Snappers. And a lot of people probably know what I'm talking about if they've seen them. They were built by Elliott Homes, which suddenly seems like they're gone now. Meritage has bought them a couple of years ago. And suddenly the brand seems like it's been almost fully absorbed at this point, and I wonder why. But these houses are five feet from each other, just stacked along Beach Boulevard. I think it's a horrible use of property. It's actually commercial business zoned, and then became a planned development infill, which is a whole nother discussion. But they turned good business property on Beach Boulevard, on the beach, into these 1,000 square foot houses next to each other. Well, one of the things that I didn't fully get right was they did a switcheroo, but it was a legal switcheroo. So they originally asked to build townhouses. They got a conditional use to build townhouses because townhouses require a conditional use. So they got to go in front of city council to get approval to build a townhouse in community business zoning. Excuse me. But they instead built single-family detached housing. Excuse me. But single-family detached housing is allowed by right in a community business zone. So they could build them, but they didn't follow the conditional use. But then they came back later to put a planned development infill on top of it so that they could subdivide it to sell them out. But they really knew they were going to do that from the beginning. In other words, the problem wasn't that they illegally built the homes, because they could build them and rent them where they were. And that's the part that I originally was mistaken on. I went back and I went, oops, I made an error right here. But what I'm not mistaken on is that they knew ahead of time that they were going to want to subdivide these. That's my understanding, to the best of my knowledge. It certainly looked that way, because as soon as they were done, I don't even think they were fully built. They came to city council and they got a planned development infill so then they can subdivide them and sell them instead. Well, my argument on that is that's kind of, cart before horse. You should have, if you were going to subdivide these and sell these, you should have went to city council before you built them. And so my answer was that shouldn't have been approved, because you did the wrong thing. You asked for permission afterward about what your real intent was. But did they violate the law on that one? No. Monarch Villas is another similar project where there were 3 or 4 violations, and those are extensive. But that's an example of something that I would say I misunderstood at the time and got wrong. And I know I've done that maybe twice, but I consider that a decent record considering how much stuff I've been involved in.
And I want to say to the listeners, watchers, I want to say that DM me if you have this is not a one-sided podcast, and this is where I'm host. My stepdad Scott's a host. We have guests on that speak their thoughts. If you notice right now, we're in here, and this is Jarrod talking about, you just admit you're wrong on certain things. So, and nobody's perfect. But reach out, DM us, DM me. If that's something that you want to come on and talk about. But I see in this situation that there's good and bad. for certain things. But Big John was a big eye opener. Going into, let's talk about the development going towards Eagle Point.
Yeah. So this is a more complicated one, and I encourage people to, Biloxi Politics Uncensored covered this quite well. I know people in the chat are laughing at me. So if you look up Hawk Creek Phase 2, if you want to really deep dive and understand what happened with that one, you're going to want to look at the documents. I'm going to summarize it as best I can here because it's quite extensive. Is Hawk Creek Phase 1 is homes that were built directly on Shorecrest and West Oaklawn Road. And they were built to the minimum required standards for the zoning as far as lot sizes and setbacks and everything else. It's very tight houses over in Eagle Point. Doesn't really match the style of the area, but in that way, it met the law. As far as lot sizes, it met the law. Now, Phase 2, what happened with that is Phase 2 had to come before. Sorry, let me step back a second. I know I'm tripping over the place, but Phase 2 for that project was a subdivision with new roads built behind those houses that are built directly on Shorecrest and West Oaklawn Road. They got approved for a preliminary plat for a subdivision, meaning it's just a preliminary, hey, here's how we're going to divide the property up and put houses in here, where the road's going to go and how things are going to be done, drainage, whatever. They got approved for a preliminary plat, but then they went to the city to get a tree permit to take out and this is kind of funny because if you watch the whole story, even this number is confusing, but to really take out 31 protected trees. That's the reality. 31 protected trees. But there was a lot of procedural violations with it, and I don't want to go through all of them. But some of them, for example, one of the most telling ones is that if you take out a protected tree, and it's funny because I don't think this was intentional in the ordinance the way it was written, but if you take out any protected tree, you must replace it with a live oak, a bald cypress, or a southern magnolia. And the Planning Commission approved cedar trees to replace it. Totally against the ordinance, totally not the code, can't do that. Definitely a procedural violation, but there's about 10 to 12 different procedural violations with that. And there are other problems going on with this subdivision in particular, but let me close out the tree permit one. I helped, and some of my friends as well, we helped them with how to file a tree appeal. Hey, here's what you have to do. Here's how the form should be written. Here's how you can make a legal argument. Here's how because lessons learned, because I've done a few different stuff with tree appeals before. And I said, here's what you need to, and lessons learned, because my first ones were not the greatest. It's like anything else. Experience will help you grow. You'll learn how to do this stuff better. But they reached out. I helped write it. They filed an appeal. But the interesting part is that I had no intention of speaking in front of city council. I was just in the background. Hey, here's what you got to do, right? Because interestingly enough, when the appeal happened, one of the comments from Mr. Jerry Creel was something along the lines, and I am paraphrasing, not quoting, was something along the lines of, it's interesting how Jarrod Fusco just pops up for all these different projects against everything throughout the community, something like that, right? But I had no intent of speaking at city council. I got reached out to the Sunday before, and it was, look, we don't have an attorney who can speak for us. I'm not comfortable speaking in front of city council. Will you speak for us? That was 3 days before the appeal. And so I was like, okay, well, we're going to do this. And so I spent the next 3 days going, I'm going to have to sit down and really make sure I'm ready. So I'm whatever it might be that I got to say, how am I going to do this? Am I going to write a speech? Am I going to freehand it and just do notes? I went the route of, hey, and I do hope there's viewers here who are listening on this and decide to become an advocate for their neighborhoods and take some advice here. Sometimes when you go and speak in front of city council, depending on what your intent is, you might want to write exactly what you want to say. And in other cases, you might want to just have notes and freehand it and read the council. look them in the eyes and read their reaction. And it depends on your intent. I tell people, if you think you're going to lose at city council, but you're going to sue, and this is what I told Big John. I said, I don't know if you're going to win, but if you're willing to sue, then we need to go the route of building a record. And anybody who's talked to a lawyer knows what I mean. You're going to build a record, which means I need to make sure I've got everything on file. I've made every argument I can based on the law, and I've got it all down so that when I appeal and I go to a court, I'm able to say I made that argument, because you can't bring up new arguments when you appeal. Some people may not know this. I learned this along the way too, because I did not know this a year and a half ago. You have to bring up the arguments. So if you think that you're going to lose and you know you're going to sue, then you should probably write your speech out word for word. If you think you might win or you're not going to sue, it doesn't matter, you're not going to sue, and you're strictly going to go for a political route, then make some notes and speak from the heart, but be prepared. Know your stuff. Read it ahead of time. Know key points you need to make that you're certain you have to say, but go up there and talk from the heart. And that's, it just depends on what you're doing. And so I went up there. I actually didn't think that city council was going to vote on the side of the residents. They denied the appeal for the tree. They approved the appeal. They denied the tree permit. So they actually stood up for what the residents were fighting for, that procedure hadn't been followed. But I didn't expect it. And I already knew it seemed very unlikely that they were going to be willing to bring it to court. So my angle was speak on behalf of the residents, speak from as best I can to what they feel about the issue, and touch on key points with procedural issues so that it's said, and hope for the best. But that's kind of Hawk Creek in a nutshell on that part. Now, I'm sure you have more questions.
It's good advice, heart or head.
Yeah,
pick one. Yeah, definitely pick one. Don't go in there without a plan. Pick one.
Well, I think that's the most important thing, because on with that being said, it's like you said, like they once it was brought to their attention, they approved the trees. Like
they denied the tree permit. Yeah, correct. They approved saving the trees.
Yeah, they approved saving the trees, so it's giving them knowledge. I mean, you just said it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't really read in to things that are going on. Like, you know, if you look at, they don't, I mean, it's everybody. I mean, nobody's a perfect person, but in the situation where you went in and go, and this ain't gonna happen, but a part of it did happen. It did.
And I do think there was, so we have a new council, without naming names. We have a new council, right? And the way I would say it, actually, I will name names at some point here, because this needs to be addressed, but in a good way this time. But we have 4 new council members, for those that don't know, because I know not everybody watches politics as closely, and that's not meant to be condescending. That's just reality. But in the last election, where and the current council members assumed office on July 1st. We gained Mr. Wayne Gray. We gained Mr. Robert Nail, Mike Nail. He goes by either. We have Mr. Jamie Creel, and we gained. Oh shoot! I'm having a brain fart right now.
I know Mike Nail.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Anthony Marshall. So that's Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, and Ward 4 in a row. We gained all 3 there. The people who stayed in office were Mr. David Shoemaker, Woolmarket, Ward 7, primarily. The Big John Road one, for those that don't know, that was Woolmarket, but that was Glavin's ward under Ward 6, just because of where it was. And we kept Paul Tisdale. So Paul Tisdale and Glavin and Shoemaker, 5, 6, 7. But with a new council, and I think this is, you don't change 4 out of 7 members on city council unless people want to change. I mean, they really wanted to change. And I'm not saying that everybody got replaced, like should have been replaced. I kind of, and I'm going to say this now, and Mr. Nails is a good man, and I don't doubt it. And council's a learning curve, but I really truly believe he's a good man at heart. Dixie Newman, who I had arguments with in the past, especially on the Broadwater property, and some interesting discussions. She was growing on me toward the end of her term. I felt like she was starting to really understand some of the problems that had been ignored in Biloxi, and she was really learning. But she's got a family now, and she's got a future. She's got a business she's run. And to be honest with you, I think in that case, it was also while it may have been to some degree, and this is not a negative toward Nail at all. To some degree, it was a loss for Biloxi, her being out of office. But in the other way, it was a huge gain for her. I very much wish her well and on her business. And I think this is good for her health, for her finances. I think it's just good in general for her life to not be in office. But that's not a testament to the fact that it wasn't a loss, I think, a little bit to Biloxi. And that's the most I'll say on that one. But as far as, you had Lawrence, longtime councilman for decades. He's been on council, Ward 1, who got replaced by Wayne Gray. That was a retirement, not so much demand for change. But I think he's a good man as well. I have no doubts about that. Anthony Marshall, some people love him, some people hate him. I think his ward loves him. I do think there are those in his ward that don't like him. I'm not going to speak for everyone. But Anthony Marshall is fighting for East Biloxi, and they need somebody to fight for them. And then you got Jamie Crow, who replaced Rodney McGilvery, and that's the interesting one going back for those that know me, is Rodney McGilvery. I was a fan of, and I would say I did not know the things I know now. Like I said, I've grown a lot in a year. And I'm not going to speak ill of the man, but I didn't know him that well, and I backed him more, and I did not back Jamie. And this was a topic that was discussed with Ivan Spinner last time, because I know it was a contentious race. I don't really want to deep dive it, but I know that I had made some statements about Jamie. Jamie is an honorable man, and I will say that now to the audience. Jamie is an honorable man. I stand by. There is a caveat, and the caveat goes away very quickly for me, is that my maybe naive impression of life a year ago was that we should always want those who represent us to essentially be, I don't want to say perfect, because I never thought perfect, but they're supposed to be the best of the best, right? And to me, at that time a year ago, my stance is that if you're in political office, you should have a clean criminal record. And I would say what I've learned in the last year, and this is going to be accusatory to some people without even saying names, is that there are those that don't have a perfect past that happens to show up on a record for them. But they're good people and just made mistakes.
That's mistakes. We're all people.
And that's, but on the other hand, there are people, and this is the accusatory part without naming names, that have perfect criminal records, but are probably, I'm going to use the word, I'm going to throw caution to the wind here because I'm not naming names, but are probably more corrupt than the person with a record. In fact, I sometimes look and go, it's scary to me that they don't have one, because the question then becomes, are you just, you're skilled is the way I look at it. You're skilled and corrupt. And Jamie, to me, is not a corrupt man. He's an honorable man who's made some mistakes, who's dealt with some crap. And I don't think I was fair to him the last time. And I want to be fair to him now, is that I do think he's an honorable man. And I do think he has a bright future ahead of him.
Well, I want to go into, for me, Mike Nell, didn't know, his son, Jeremy's a buddy of mine. I found Mike Nell through social media when I had him on the podcast. So and his videos, for me, wasn't like heavily, wasn't super viral, but for people from being from the coast, you see a man that's like, clean up these sidewalks. Look at these homeless at Broadwater. Let's film this. And I'm like, for a person to take the courage to start showing on his personal, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I just sat there, and I literally didn't know him. I met him probably not even a year ago. Like I met him at a gas station, but I met him through social media just because he highlighting half sidewalks, overgrown areas. I mean, coming from an irrigation family, just cutting grass, he being a carny in Biloxi, traveling but being married for the longest time, being in the same house for what, 50 years. For me, that drew attraction. So I was like, hey, dude, you want to come on? You want to come on and talk about some stuff? Like,
I tell you what I like about him is he doesn't know the word no.
Mike Nail doesn't know the word no?
He is a
That we can relate.
There's a solution. There's a way to do it. We're going to get it done. That story you told about the sidewalk. The city couldn't get it programmed into their work product. Well, he just went and got it done. Just did it. You know, he's a fixer. He wants to make things better.
It's like the pier. What was that pier? Highland Hills. I'm saying it wrong. Holly Hill. What's the neighborhood? I'm gonna say it wrong. I mean, it's in the comments. People know it. It's one of the biggest things. Rolling Hills. It's on Popstar. It's one of the one of the old piers, but he'd go there and it would just film, and then it, finally started he started making posts, and then things started getting fixed. But he'd make these posts, and I mean, like some of them went pretty hit, but like he'd make a post, and all of a sudden, it's getting trimmed. And it was him going. And he told me one time, he goes, I don't really fill my tank up because I enjoy going to the local gas station and talk to people. And then he'd go and give people on the streets money. And, it just not like tons of money, but and he always wearing his work shirt. And I'm like, this dude is just, like you said, it's always on go. It's like, let's fix this. And I think one of the most thing was like, hey, how about these kids get on the school bus and their new shoes? Their parents can't afford new shoes. But if they step in a puddle getting to the school bus, it's going to cost money for the parents. Like, let's add a little more concrete. And that's things that to me was an eye opener. And then seeing Broadwater homelessness, he was reporting on that before anybody. And he was going back there.
Yeah.
By himself with a camera like this. Hey, I'm Mike now.
Yeah.
Walk with me.
I saw the stuff back there.
I'm like, I'm gonna walk with you, bro. But how you walking by yourself to back there? And just wearing his work shirt.
The best way to put it is there's open carry in Mississippi. Or concealed carry, but I would not have gone back there at that time unarmed. Bad idea.
And I'm glad you brought up, like people that don't have, you look at, Jamie Krill, which he was my babysitter for a long time. So I will say, he did my dad's eulogy, and he was to me, my dad was his little brother. If you go to tailgaters, there's a Scott Durham plaque at the end of the bar. So now when I feel weak, whether I'm going through Carter's Champions or my charity and, dealing with these meetings, I kind of want to be by myself. And it's cool to have, you go to tailgaters and you have that seat's got my dad's name on it. So it's like, Jamie's the one that did that. It's like, and then Jamie called me, he's like, can I do your dad's eulogy? And, for me, that was like, hey man, yeah, but it was everything I ever asked. There was probably 600 to 700 people there. And it was, you, like you said, it's just people make mistakes, and from politicians to everyday people, I've never met a perfect person, and I probably never will. And that's cool that you're bringing that up. And it's cool that as you're going in and you're realizing and you're doing your research, you're not perfect when you reach out, but you're not doing it to you're not going, look at me, I'm Jarrod. You're not, look at me, I'm Jarrod. You get, like you said, you're 4 kids, from you and Ivan's podcast to where you and Ivan communicate now to things go around where you really just can't prejudge people, and going with local politics. And I've never been a politician. I just have a charity that's been pretty popular, and we give our money to the hospital, and we don't have anybody on staff, and I work really hard at it, and it's a lot of downtime for family, but it's our community, and like a Big John situation where that's important to them. And knowledge is key, because people don't really, like I said, now I'm seeing on media is Lane Kiffin. I'm seeing on media now is more of a QVC style on social media. And you're seeing more of super divided people. And I mean, look, social media, I always say, is it's a good thing and it's a negative thing too. It's I've death scrolled for 2 hours just on how to make food. Okay. Now it's just a small little munchy videos for me, but I like watching a cool grilled cheese, you know. But I mean, I'm saying I get lost in that for a couple hours.
Dude, you can get lost in social media real fast. You know that, and this actually brought me back to something I thought I actually didn't finish saying. Is earlier we were talking about, I had mentioned only 5% of people voted in the last election. Did you know that back when Margaret Cherry, that's an infamous name, and Jarrod Blessey faced off for the mayor's race, Biloxi had a population of about 40,000 people, and about 10,000 people voted, 25%.
I never knew them numbers.
Why do I know that? Newspapers.com. Like, so I mean, it's, and no, I'm not. It's not a paid ad. No, nobody's paying me for that.
But it's just good to bring up knowledge.
But like, why is like you? Some people might ask themselves, you know, when I was in high school, I had a crazy history teacher. He would in a 48-minute period for classes. If it was test day, you had 100-question test with an essay question on the end, and you had to do it in those 48 minutes. Dude, this dude caught it. College was easy after this guy. Not a problem at all. But what I'll tell you is while I did like history, but did horrible at his class. I liked history, but bad at it. Bad at remembering numbers usually and names, although I've gotten better since. But what I learned to appreciate that I didn't get from high school was that history, especially when it involves politics and culture, especially culture, provides insight that can help you make good decisions today. Because I don't think that there's a saying that if you don't learn from history, you have a tendency to repeat it. And there's a lot of different ways that's phrased. But I think a lot of the problems that we do see in Biloxi, and not just Biloxi, but around the country, is because people either aren't interested in or weren't around or haven't had it shared to them through generations, lessons that previous generations learned. And so I challenge the younger generation to not wait to be told their history of their culture and whatever it might be. I challenge to go out and seek that knowledge. If you really want to find a place in the world, you're not going to have to expect, and I'm going to be very impolite, you can't expect that your taxes go to a school district and your school district is going to teach you just whatever might be relevant to the application in your life for you to succeed. And I'm not saying that schools don't teach good information. I mean, there's a baseline stuff, but when we're talking about knowledge that becomes applicable toward making change in the world, if that's something you're interested in, and this is relevant in saying this, I joined the military because I wanted to do something bigger than myself. And I'm going to be slightly negative here. I'm not saying that I haven't had a good career and I haven't had enlightening events. I was in IUD during Allies Refuge when we were pulling Afghans. We went back in after we pulled out under Biden. We went back in and we were pulling refugees out, people who were literally running for their lives, people who we promised to protect when they were providing intel to us and providing support. And we went back in and we were pulling them out. And I was an IUD. I was the only comm guy assigned to the 8th Expeditionary Air Maintenance Squadron and 8th EAMS. And I remember when the first plane came in and I walked outside. This is going to be a touching one for me. I walked outside my trailer, which was my office essentially, and I looked over and I saw a young girl the age of my daughter next to her mother, who was there because they were fleeing their home country because their home country had the Taliban chasing them down to kill them. And I asked myself a question at the time. What makes the United States different? And my answer is that we haven't had it happen yet. And that's a very negative thing to say, but we haven't had it happen yet. The only thing that prevents that from happening in the US is people standing up that have, and I'm just going to say it now as a Christian, that are followers of Christ, believe in a God, have a moral backbone that follows that, have ethics, and they decide that we're going to protect the right thing. We're going to protect the freedoms of our country. We're going to be a moral nation. And that's what we're going to do. And we're not going to allow that to happen here, not in America. If it costs blood, it costs blood if we have to prevent that from happening here where we're running from our own country. And it gave me a different appreciation for people in that situation. And it really made me appreciate life, and it made me want to go, well, I need to learn. I really need to learn, because I don't want that to happen here. And when I see things, where does it start? And I had to ask myself the question, where does it start? Well, I think it starts when people stop seeking truth and start believing lies. They stop believing that their voice matters. If you are a resident in Biloxi, you live here, you pay taxes in Biloxi, this is your city. You have a say in this city. This is your city. And if you are telling me that your voice doesn't matter and you can't do anything, and you have no impact and no say, none at all, I have a problem with that, because that's where it starts. I say that's where it starts. Those people there that are running from people chasing them down, trying to kill them, that's where it starts. Apathy. Apathy is the death of a nation. Apathy. We've got to stop. People need to start caring. And I don't care if people hate me while I do it. Christ was hated too. I don't care. Hate me. But I'm going to seek the truth. And if I get pointed out, hey, you got this wrong, which I've had it. I remember the second time now, and I don't want to get off track. But I have gone in and written retractions before where I've had it pointed out, oh, you got this wrong. Because to me, truth matters. That's the foundation. That's the bedrock of a healthy nation, is truth.
Well, I'll tell you right now, going to have you back on this show. This has been a good understanding. Like I said, reach out on these topics where you think, about Jarrod's thoughts on the city of Biloxi or any local politics down here. You can DM Jarrod. You can DM me. I will say that last name, it makes complete sense. You do live here, and you do pay tax here, and you got to stand up for here. So there's nothing wrong with having belief. You have a voice. You have a voice. I mean, that's it. You have a voice. Thank you so much for being on the show. We will be working on, I apologize on the live situation, but we will be working on it. This is not perfect. This is just underground live. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Jarrod, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Scott, I love you a little bit, a lot, but yeah, man, we'll have you back on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, this is part 2 with Jarrod. See y'all soon.